Ashmore General Hospital had its secrets, as did most places where people quietly passed from one world to the next. But there was one place in the hospital that everyone avoided: the basement level. Officially closed due to structural issues, it held a dark reputation among the night shift staff. Odd noises, strange shapes, and a haunting rhythmic chant that some unlucky night shifters claimed to hear in the dead of night. Elena had heard the rumors from her co-workers. They called it the singing floor, saying that strange sounds and shadowy figures could be found lurking there. People joked that if you ventured down there, the singing would steal your mind, dragging you into an endless loop of eerie sounds and shadows. She'd laughed with the others, brushing off their stories as idle gossip meant to rattle the rookies. Elena was new, eager to prove herself unshakable. Her first night shift started quietly enough. Elena spent the early hours checking on patients, logging vitals, and filling in charts. By midnight, the halls were deserted, save for the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. She had just returned to the break room for a coffee when she heard it, faint, like a cracked melody drifting from somewhere below. The sound was so soft she might have imagined it, but as she listened, the melody grew louder, warped and unsettling, as if it were coming from an old, warped record. "Just a prank," she murmured, steadying her nerves. She turned back to her rounds, determined to brush off the strange noise, but it lingered at the edge of her hearing, persistent and chilling. It wasn't long before Elena found herself at the stairwell leading down to the old basement level, the sound drawing her like a lure. The stairwell was dim and cold, each step seeming to vibrate as the melody grew louder. She reached the bottom and pushed open the heavy door leading to the basement. The faint chant filled the air, unsettlingly loud now, wrapping around her like a fog. The basement was darker than she'd imagined, the lighting weak and flickering. A single corridor stretched out before her, lined with restroom doors, each one slightly ajar. The warped tune hung heavy in the air, vibrating as it filled her with an icy dread. Each step forward seemed to deepen the shadows around her. As she neared one of the restroom stalls, Elena felt something watching her. She stopped, her heart pounding, and glanced over her shoulder. No one was there. But from inside one of the stalls, a garbled, broken chant drifted out, now unmistakably human, yet wrong in every way. She took a cautious step forward, peering into the stall. Her heart froze. There, inside the stall, was a face staring back at her. It was almost human, but twisted and distorted, like a melted mask. Its eyes were hollow, black as pits, and its mouth stretched into a jagged, unsettling grin. The face looked at her with a dark, sinister intelligence, and as it stared, it began to hum, the broken tune coming from deep in its throat, guttural and warped. Elena's skin prickled with terror as she stumbled back, feeling her heartbeat hammer against her ribs. The face grinned wider, its mouth stretching to unnatural lengths as the song poured out of it, louder now, vibrating through the floor. Then another face emerged from a nearby stall, its head twisting at a sickening angle to meet her gaze, its own mouth curling into a mirthless grin as it joined the chant. She turned to run, but everywhere she looked, more faces appeared, one after the other, crawling out from the shadows, their twisted forms fused with the restroom stalls, their hands cold and broken as they clawed their way toward her. The hallways around her stretched and twisted, leading her in endless loops as the haunting chant grew louder, filling her mind. She ran, each corner leading her only to more grinning faces, more hollow eyes, each echoing the twisted, fractured melody. Finally, she spotted the narrow stairwell at the far end of a hall. She sprinted toward it, gripping the railing with all her strength as the faces loomed closer, reaching for her. But as she tried to pull herself up, a new figure appeared at the top of the stairs. It was larger than the others, its hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. and its grin stretched impossibly wide, like a cracked porcelain doll. It loomed over her, blocking her escape, and joined the chant with a deeper, louder voice, as though welcoming her into their nightmarish chorus. Panicking, Elena backed away, only to find herself surrounded. The faces crawled closer, their warped bodies dragging against the tile floor, porcelain fingers stretching toward her as their voices grew louder. Her thoughts grew muddled, the chant burrowing into her mind, sinking its claws into her memories. She fell to her knees, pressing her hands over her ears, but it was no use. The haunting, endless melody filled her, tearing apart her thoughts, drowning out her very sense of self. In one last act of desperation, she tried to scream, but the chant swallowed her voice, silencing her cries. The lights flickered and went out, plunging the hall into pitch blackness. She felt cold, ceramic fingers gripping her wrists and ankles, pulling her into the shadows. And as the darkness consumed her, the last thing she heard was that broken chant, warped and echoing, pulling her mind into its terrible, endless rhythm. When the lights returned, the basement was silent. The hall was empty, save for a faint, hollow melody that echoed softly from the darkness, waiting for the next soul to wander into its grasp. Some say if you listen closely on the graveyard shift, you can hear a new voice in the basement, singing softly, forever lost in the haunted halls of Ashmore General.